نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربنا زدنا علما. So inshallah today we will begin Sahih Bukhari from the Bab in Abwab Sifatul Salah, Bab number 95, which is Bab Wuju' bil Qira'ati lil Imami wal Ma'mumi في الصلوات كلها في الحضر والسفر وما يجهر فيها وما يخافت. So far in this chapter, what have we studied about Salah? What is the description of prayer? How does it begin? It begins with takbir, saying Allahu Akbar as well as raising of the hands. And then what's the next step? What's the next step? Putting the hands where? Placing them on the chest. And we discussed that also in great detail. And then we also learned about khushu' fi salah. And we also learned about the dua that the Prophet ﷺ would recite upon saying takbir. The first thing he would say when he would begin the salah was some dua of istiftah. Now after dua istiftah, what's next? Surah al-Fatiha. Right? So remember that in the following ahadith, in the following abwab, we will be learning about qira'ah, recitation. Recitation during the prayer. And that recitation is obviously where? In the qiyam, after dua istiftah. And that recitation includes Surah Al-Fatiha. And it also includes other surahs. Okay? But always remember, when the word qira'ah is used, definitely Surah Al-Fatiha is a part of that. Okay? Other surahs are not necessarily part of that, because you know that in the first rak'ah and the second rak'ah, you recite different surahs after Surah Al-Fatiha. However, in the third rak'ah, in the fourth rak'ah, are you required to recite? No. What was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? Only Surah Al-Fatiha. So, Bab Wujub al-Qira'ati, the obligation of recitation. Meaning it is obligatory to recite. Recite what? Surah Al-Fatiha. And this obligation is for who? Lil imami, for the imam, meaning the one who is leading the people in prayer. Secondly, wal ma'mum, and also the ma'mum, meaning those who are following the imam in the prayer. Surah Al-Fatiha has to be recited by everybody, the imam, the ma'mum, fi salawati kulliha, in the prayers. Which prayers? Kulliha, all of them. Meaning whether it is Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, any salah. When you're praying behind the imam has to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and the ma'mum also has to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Fil hadari, in the hadar. What is hadar? In residence, meaning at home, when a person is not traveling. Was safari, and travel, meaning during travel also. Wama yujharu fiha, and that which is recited out loud. Wama yukhafatu, and that which is recited silently. Okay? Now, what does it mean by hadar and safar? Let's look at it from the beginning. There's basically three things that Imam Bukhari has mentioned. Surah Al-Fatiha is recited by who? First of all, imam and ma'mum. Okay? Imam and ma'mum. And the same applies to the munfarid also, meaning the person who's performing salah himself. Why? Because what applies to the imam also applies to the munfarid. Because when a person is praying by himself, who is he leading? Himself. And when a person is praying by himself, anyone can come and join him, and he will automatically become who? The imam. Okay? So remember that the rulings that are applied to the imam are also applied to the munfarid. Okay? So basically, regardless of how you're praying the salah, whether you're leading or you're following or you're praying by yourself, you have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Okay? Secondly, fi salawati kulliha, and all the prayers, okay, whether they are fil hadari was safari, whether a person is at home or he is traveling. Now we see that when a person is traveling, then the salah is shortened, right? 4 rak'ah turn into 2. But it doesn't mean that while you're shortening the prayer, you shorten it so much that you don't even recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Okay? So Surah Al-Fatiha has to be recited whether you are in hadar or you are in safar. The third thing that is mentioned is وَمَا يُجْهَرُ فِيهَا وَمَا يُخَافَتْ. Now, when a person is leading the people in prayer, when he's the imam, certain prayers are such in which he will recite the Quran out loud. Which prayers are those? Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha. And other prayers are such in which he will not recite out loud. Which ones are they? Dhuhr and Asr. So Imam Bukhari says over here that whether it is Jahri Salah or it is Sirri Salah, the Imam has to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and the Ma'moom behind him, even he has to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. So for example, when we're standing in Dhuhr Salah, okay, behind the Imam, we can't say, oh, the Imam is reciting for us. No. The Imam is reciting Surah Al-Fatiha for himself, and we have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha for ourselves. So from this, the obligation of recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha in Salah is clear. What's the evidence of this? A very interesting hadith that Imam Bukhari uses as evidence. حدثنا موسى قال حدثنا أبو عوانة قال حدثنا عبد الملك بن عمير عن جابر بن سمرة قال, he said, Jabir bin Samurah said that شكى أهل الكوفة, the Ahl of Kufa. Ahl, who are Ahl? People. Kufa, what is Kufa? A place, a city. So the people of Kufa, they shaka, shakwa, complain. Good. So the people of Kufa, they raised some complaints. Against who? Sa'dan. Against Sa'd. Meaning Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu. They raised some complaints about Sa'd radiyallahu anhu, and they complained to who? Ila Umar radiyallahu anhu. So they brought those complaints to Umar radiyallahu anhu. Why? Because Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu was appointed as the governor of Kufa. And when the people had an issue with their governor, they went to who? The Khalifa. Who was the Khalifa at that time? Umar radiyallahu anhu. So they raised some complaints. So Umar radiyallahu anhu, what did he do? فَعَزَلَهُ. So he azala. What does azal mean? I'tazala, to keep away. Right? So azala, meaning he dismissed him. Umar radiyallahu anhu removed Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas from the position of governor of Kufa. He removed him. وَاسْتَعْمَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ, and he appointed over them, over who? The people of Kufa, Ammar, meaning Ammar ibn Yasir radiyallahu anhu. So in other words, he replaced Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas with Ammar bin Yasir. فَشَكَوْا, so the people had complained, حَتَّى until ذَكَرُوا, they mentioned, that أَنَّهُ, that indeed he, who? Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, لَا يُحْسِنُ يُصَلِّي, he does not do ihsan in salah, meaning he does not pray salah properly. He does not perform the salah correctly. So they raised many issues, and they even complained about his salah. Because you see, the governor, the imam, the leader of the people, he would also lead them in prayer. He would not just be their political leader, but also their spiritual leader. So they complained that he doesn't even pray properly. So Umar radhiyallahu anhu, on the one hand, he replaced Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas immediately, but he didn't just leave it there. No, he investigated the issue. What did he do? فَأَرْسَلَ إِلَيْهِ, so he sent for him. Sent for who? Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. He called him. He called him to himself, so that he could ask him that these are the complaints being raised against you. What do you have to say about them? فَقَالَ, so he said, يَا أَبَا إِسْحَاقِ, he said, oh Abu Ishaq. Who is Abu Ishaq? Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas. This was his kunya. Okay? He said, Ya Aba Ishaq, inna ha'ulai, indeed these people, yaz'umuna, they claim, annaka, that indeed you, la tuhsinu tusalli, you do not pray properly. These people claim that you are not performing the salah properly. Qala Abu Ishaq, meaning Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he said, Amma ana, as for I, wallahi, by Allah, فَإِنِّي كُنْتُ أُصَلِّي بِهِمْ صَلَاةَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He said, as for me, by Allah, I pray amongst them the salah, meaning when I lead them in prayer, what kind of prayer do I perform? The prayer of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. مَا أَخْرِمُ عَنْهَا, I do not diminish from it. أَخْرِمُ, meaning أَنْقُسُ. I do not do any naqs, I do not fall short in following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أُصَلِّي صَلَاةَ الْعِشَاءِ, I perform the Isha prayer. فَأَرْكُدُ, so I make long. فِي in al-ulayaini, the first two. Meaning the first two rak'ah, how do I perform them? I extend them, meaning I make them long. وَأُخَفِّفُ and I lighten, meaning I keep short. What? فِي الْأُخْرَيَيْنِ the other two, meaning the last two rak'ah. So Isha has how many rak'at? 4. Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas is saying, I follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The first two rak'ah, I make them long, and the last two rak'ah, I keep them short. Now, how do you think the first two rak'ah would be long? Obviously with the recitation of the Quran. And the second two, how would they be short? Only with Surah Al-Fatiha. قال Umar radiallahu anhu said, ذَاكَ الظَّنُّ بِكَ يَا أَبَا إِسْحَاقَ That is the thought about you, meaning that is what we thought about you, O Abu Ishaq. That this is the only thing we could expect from you because you are a companion of the Messenger ﷺ. You saw him pray, so we would only expect that you would follow the sunnah. ذَاكَ الظَّنُّ بِكَ يَا أَبَا إِسْحَاقَ فَأَرْسَلَ مَعَهُ رَجُلًا أَوْ رِجَالًا إِلَى الْكُوفَةِ Now when Umar radiallahu anhu spoke to Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas himself, now he wanted to hear the other side of the story. So he sent with him, meaning with Sa'd radiallahu anhu, rajulan, a man, aw rijalan, or some men, along with him, where? Ila al-Kufa, to Kufa. فَسَأَلَ عَنْهُ So these men who were sent with Sa'd radiallahu anhu, they went to Kufa, and they asked about him. About who? Sa'd radiallahu anhu. Who did they ask? Ahl al-Kufa, the people of Kufa. So they're going to do their research, to solicit feedback, to find out as to what is the opinion of the people about Sa'd radiallahu anhu. And in order to get their feedback, what did they do? They went to the masajid. They went to the mosques. Why? Because that is where the people are. That is where the public is. وَلَمْ يَدَعْ مَسْجِدًا إِلَّا سَأَلَ عَنْهُ And this person who was sent with him, he did not leave any masjid except that he asked about him. Meaning he asked the people over there about Sa'd radiallahu anhu. And what was the response that they got in general? وَيُثْنُونَ مَعْرُوفًا And they all praised, thana, to praise. They all praised Sa'd radiallahu anhu, ma'rufan, with ma'ruf praise. Meaning, understood. It was, meaning everyone recognized the good qualities of Sa'd radiallahu anhu. No one had any issue with him. Hatta until dakhala masjidan, he entered a masjid that was of Libani Absin. That was of the Banu Abs. Because remember that back in the day, how did people live? The families, extended families, would live in a certain area. Not in one house, but in a certain area. So for example, an entire area, a particular tribe or particular sub-tribe would inhabit it. Okay? And obviously, over there, because if the area was large, they would also have a masjid. So that masjid would be known by the people who lived in the vicinity of that masjid. You understand? This is similar to how, if there's a masjid in a particular street, then that masjid sometimes is called by the name of that street. Okay? People don't know the actual name of the masjid. Okay? They will know it by the street name. Right? So, حتى دخل مسجدا لبني عبس فقام رجل منهم And when they asked for feedback, a man from among them, he stood up, and that man, يقال له, he was called أسامة بن قتادة. His name was Usama bin Qatada. يكنى أبا سعدة. يكنى. Good, mashallah. Yukna from kunya. Okay? Meaning he was given the kunya of Abu Sa'da. That was his kunya. قال, he said, أما إذ نشدتنا, since you have asked us, he said, this man said that since you ask us, and nashattana, you ask us under oath, meaning you ask us in Allah's name, فَإِنَّ سَعْدًا, he said, indeed Sa'd, كَانَ لَا يَسِيرُ بِالسَّرِيَّةِ He says, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he does not yasiru. Yasiru, travel, good. Bis-sariyya, with the sariyya. What is sariyya? Okay, good. Not caravan, expedition, battle. Okay? Remember, when we study different battles that took place, we categorize them into two. One is ghazwa. And what is that? In which the Prophet ﷺ himself participated. And the other is sariyya. And which ones are they? The ones that he sent that he himself did not participate in. And later on, the term that was used for different expeditions was sariyya. Okay? So he said, the first issue we have against him is that he himself does not go out for battle. He sends people, but being the governor, he himself does not participate. And he said, وَلَا يَقْسِمُ بِالسَّوِيَّةِ وَلَا يَقْسِمُ, and he does not do taqsim, he does not divide. بِالسَّوِيَّةِ, سَوِيَّةِ, sawa, equality. Good. When he is dividing the booty, or he is dividing the shares amongst the people, he is not just, he is unfair. And thirdly, وَلَا يَعْدِلُ فِي الْقَضِيَّةِ, and he is not fair, he does not do adl in qadiyya. Qadiyya, what is qadiyya? From qada, judgment. Meaning when he's making his judgments, when he's passing judgment between people, he's not fair. So he raised these three objections against the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قال سعد, Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu said, أما والله, by Allah, لأدعون بثلاث. لأدعون, I make dua. بثلاث, with three. Meaning I make three prayers over here. I call upon Allah for three things. Allahumma, O Allah, in kana abduka hada kadiban, if this slave of yours is a liar, qama riya'an, and he has stood up riya'an, to be seen, was sum'atan, and to be heard, meaning so that people see him, they admire him, and they listen to him, and they keep mentioning what he has said, and he becomes popular. In other words, he has stood up, with lies in order to gain popularity, in order to show off, and there is not even an atom of truth in his statement, then فَأَطِلْ عُمْرَهُ, then, O Allah, I beseech you that atil, what does atil mean? From tul, that you make long umrahu, his age, his life, meaning give him a long life. Now that seems to be a blessing. But he says, atil umrahu wa atil faqrahu, and make his faqr long. Meaning, make him live a long life so that he reaches extreme old age, and he suffers from poverty. وَعَرِّضْهُ بِالْفِتَنِ, عَرِّضْهُ, present him with fitan, with trials, meaning expose him to different trials of life. وَكَانَ بَعْدُ, and after, إِذَا سُئِلَ, when he was asked. Who? The same man. Which man? Whose kunya was Abu Sa'da, who raised these objections, who criticized Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu, who accused him. This man later on, إِذَا سُئِلَ, whenever he was asked. When somebody asks you, what does it mean? That they're asking, how are you? How's everything going? So إِذَا سُئِلَ, whenever he was asked, how are you? يَقُولُ شَيْخٌ كَبِيرٌ, this shaykhun kabir, this old man, and he was maftoon, he was someone who was exposed to many trials in life, he would say, أَصَابَتْنِي دَعْوَةُ سَعْدٍ, the dua of Sa'd has afflicted me. Meaning the dua that he made against me was accepted. I am suffering today because of that dua. قال Abdul Malik said, one of the narrators, he said, فَأَنَا رَأَيْتُهُ بَعْدُ, he said, I myself saw that man later on. قَدْ سَقَطَ, it had fallen. What had fallen? حَاجِبَاهُ, his eyebrows, عَلَى عَيْنَيْهِ, on his eyes, min al-kibar, from extreme old age. He had become so old that his skin had become so wrinkled that his eyebrows, literally, they were fallen on his eyes. The skin had almost covered his eyes. Extreme old age. وَإِنَّهُ, and indeed he, لَيَتَعَرَّضُ لِلْجَوَارِ فِي الطُّرُقِ. Jawari, what are jawari? Jariya, young girl. So jawari, young girls, what would he do? يَتَعَرَّضُ, he would harass them basically. Okay? فِي الطُّرُقِ, in the streets. يَغْمِزُهُنَّ, he would pinch them, poke them. Old man, and so maftoon that little girls, young girls who were going by, he would just grab them and pinch them and poke them. And obviously you can understand that if a man is physically harassing a girl like that, he wouldn't be pinching her just on the arm. He wouldn't be poking her just on the arm. Right? So he was maftoon. Now in this hadith, what do we see? There's many lessons. First of all, we see that Umar radhiyallahu anhu, when he appointed his governors, he wanted to ensure that those governors were just and fair, and they were not oppressing people in any way. And this is the reason why, first of all, he would make it clear to them. From other sources we learned that Umar radiallahu anhu, whenever he would appoint his governors, he would make clear to them that I have not appointed you so that you oppress and coerce and force your people, nor take their wealth. Rather, I have appointed you so that you observe the religion of Allah amongst them. And this is the reason why, whenever complaints were raised against his governors, Umar radiallahu anhu would listen to them. He would take feedback. He wouldn't, put his governors or his officials in this, position where no one could speak out against them. No one could raise any objection against them. No one could give any feedback about them. No. He had made them such that, first of all, he made clear to them what their role was. And secondly, he would receive feedback from the people. Why? So that no one could be unfair and unjust and abuse the power that they had been given. You see, the Prophet ﷺ also, what was his way? He would listen to what the people had to say. And the munafiqeen actually made fun of him, right? And they said, Huwa udhun. He is all ears. That he listens to everything that people have to say. But you have to listen to the public also. You have to listen to what the ordinary people have to say also about their leaders. Why? Otherwise, how can you have, the right idea about what the situation is? But Umar radiallahu anhu would not base his decisions just on what the people had to say. He would hear them, but he would also hear the other side of the story. He would also investigate. Okay? So over here we see that for whatever reasons, he did have to replace Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas with Ammar bin Yasir radiallahu anhu. And that perhaps was temporary. I'm not aware of whether it was a permanent situation or it was a temporary thing. But this had to be done. But he called Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas and he asked him, these are the issues that have been raised against you. What do you have to say? Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he gave his response. But then, again, that was not enough. Umar radiallahu anhu sent his people to go and find out. Go to every masjid and see what everyone has to say. We have received complaints from these individuals, but we need to find out, does everyone think the same way? Because you know what happens many times? When we have a complaint about a particular individual, what do we say? Everybody feels like that, but they're too shy to speak up. Everyone thinks this way, but they're never going to say. So I am speaking on behalf of everybody. We generalize the feedback. Okay? And many times when such feedback is brought to us, we accept it. We're like, okay, if one child is saying, everyone is thinking like this, then this must be it. No. You need to ask everybody. You need to find out from everybody. If you want to make a fair, just decision, then you need to get feedback from everybody. And this was the justice of Umar radiallahu anhu. That how he sent his people, every masjid, find out from them what they have to say. Now, we see that everybody had positive things to say about Sa'd radiallahu anhu, except for this one man. One man only. And the 3 complaints he had against him was what? That firstly, he stays back from jihad. Secondly, he is not fair in his distribution. And thirdly, he is unfair when he makes judgments. Right? Now, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas, he made 3 du'as against him. Why 3? 3 accusations, so 3 du'as. Because what do we learn in the Qur'an? That when you have been transgressed, then you may take revenge, but فَاعْتَدُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا اعْتَدَيْتَ. Right? That similar to that which has been done to you. Not more than that. Because if you do more than that, then you are the oppressor. You are the transgressor then. So this is why Sa'd radiallahu anhu, he made 3 du'as. And look at how he made it clear that, oh Allah, if this servant of yours is lying, then make his life long. And obviously, if life is long, then what does it mean? More sins will be committed. A person will experience more difficulty in life because old age is extremely difficult. To the point that a person is sick of his own body. He's sick of his own life. He doesn't want to live on anymore. He doesn't want to live on anymore. To the point that he begins asking Allah for death. Because his body does not cooperate with him. Things have changed. He has lost his ability, at so many levels. Life is more difficult than easy. So, long life is is difficult, especially if it's with sins, especially if it's with dependence on others. But on the other hand, long life with health, with good deeds is a blessing. Long life with health and with good deeds is a big blessing. That every day a person is, worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more, benefiting other people more. That is a blessing because he can increase in his good deeds. The second dua that he made against him was that increase his poverty. And the third thing, expose him to trials. Now, Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu, he was not an ordinary man. He was a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And remember that at the Battle of Uhud, Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was giving him the arrows. And he was saying, shoot these arrows, O Sa'd, may my mother and father be sacrificed for you. This dua, the Prophet ﷺ made for Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu, and this was very unique. Every companion did not receive such kind of support from the Prophet ﷺ. It is also said that the Prophet ﷺ prayed for him that, Oh Allah, make Sa'd mustajabu da'wat, meaning the one whose du'as are accepted. And really, Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu became of those people whose du'as were accepted. Now Imam Bukhari is using this hadith over here to extract a lesson. What lesson? That recitation is mandatory in prayer. Now what do we see? Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu, he said that when I pray 4 rak'ah Isha for them, the first 2 are long and the second 2 are short. And this was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, the fact that there is some length to all 4 rak'ah, what does it mean? Recitation of Qur'an is being done. Minimum of Surah Al-Fatiha in all 4 rak'ah. So what does it mean? Obligation of Surah Al-Fatiha in all rak'at. Secondly, the first 2 are long, which means that after Surah Al-Fatiha there is also some other recitation. Thirdly, we see that he is reciting Surah Al-Fatiha himself, and he is expecting that the people behind him are also reciting. The same applies to the Imam and the Ma'mum. Because this is how it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is how he did it also. حدثنا علي بن عبد الله قال حدثنا سفيان قال حدثنا الزهري عن محمود بن الربيع عن عبادة بن الصامت أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا صلاة. The Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, لا صلاة, there is no salah, there is no prayer. لمن, for the one who lam, not يقرأ, he recites بفاتحة الكتاب, with the Fatiha of Kitab. What is Fatiha al-Kitab? Surah Al-Fatiha. So the one who does not recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then his salah is not valid, it is not complete. So what does it show? Surah Al-Fatiha is obligatory in salah. Now notice over here, La salata liman, for the one who. Man over here is general. Whether he is the imam, or he is the ma'mum, or he is musafir, or he is at home, or he is praying himself, or it is sirri salah or jahri salah, man is general. So the hukum is general. So the minimum qira'ah required in every rak'ah is of what? Suratul Fatiha. Now there is a question. If the imam is reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, and let's say it's a jahri salah, so for example Maghrib, and he's reciting Surah Al-Fatiha out loud, what is a ma'mum supposed to do? Is he supposed to recite at the same time? Is he supposed to recite after the imam? What is he supposed to do? After the imam, but then after the imam finishes Surah Al-Fatiha, he moves on to another surah. Yes, there are certain places where you go and the imam will give a long pause after Surah Al-Fatiha so that the ma'mum can recite their own Surah Al-Fatiha. But it doesn't happen every time. And if you start reciting at that time, then you're not listening to the imam. You're not listening to the Qur'an. Whereas in the Qur'an, what have we been taught? That إِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنِ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا. You have to be silent when the Qur'an is being recited. Right? So then what are you supposed to do? Again, if you read as soon as he will finish, either you are reciting when he is reciting, which is wrong, or you are reciting when he is giving a pause, which is, alhamdulillah, good. But you won't always have that option. Okay? So, what is it that we're supposed to do? Remember that there are two scholarly opinions, meaning both of them are correct. Whichever one you've been taught, whichever one you practice, alhamdulillah, it's fine. The first opinion is that it is obligatory for the imam and the ma'moom both to recite. So even the ma'moom, he has to recite. How will he recite? He will recite simultaneously with the imam, or he will recite after the imam gives a pause, or if the imam does not give a pause, then he will recite his own Surah Al-Fatiha. And yes, on the other hand, we do learn that reciting the Quran, when the Quran is recited, you should listen. But the scholars have said that over here, this is an exceptional situation, because the Prophet ﷺ said, "La salata liman la yaqra'u bi Fatihatil kitab." So, if he will not recite Surah Al-Fatiha, his salah will not be complete. So they said he has to recite. Okay? So this is one opinion. The second opinion is that the recitation of the imam is also the recitation of the one who is praying behind him. Okay? But this is when the imam is reciting out loud. When it is jahri. So for example, Maghrib Salah, the imam recited Surah Al-Fatiha. And when he finished, he said, Ameen. And you were saying Ameen with him. Now what does it mean? When you're saying Ameen with him, you're asking for the same thing. Okay? So it's as though the imam recited Surah Al-Fatiha out loud for who? For himself and for all the people who are behind him. But for the third rak'ah of Maghrib, you cannot say the imam is reciting for me. You have to recite Surah Al-Fatiha yourself. Likewise, Dhuhr Salah, Asr Salah, you can't say imam is reciting for me. You have to recite yourself. Okay? Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay. Ibn Hajar said that those who say that the one who is praying behind an imam does not have to recite it in prayers where Quran is to be recited out loud, such as the Malikis, quote as evidence the hadith, when he recites, then listen attentively. Because in a hadith we learned that the imam, when he recites, then the people were told, listen attentively, meaning don't start reciting. And remember when the Prophet ﷺ would receive wahi, and he would start reciting at the same time, what was he told? What was he told? لا تحرك به لسانك لتعجل به. Don't move your tongue in order to hasten. No, at this time when Quran is being recited, you have to listen. You cannot be reciting simultaneously. And this hadith is authentic. When he recites, then listen attentively. So what do we understand? That when the imam is reciting out loud, then he is reciting on your behalf also. You have to say Ameen. If the imam gives a pause after Surah Al-Fatiha, take benefit from that pause and recite Surah Al-Fatiha yourself also. Okay? But it doesn't mean that for every rak'ah you depend on the recitation of the imam. No. When the imam is not reciting out loud, then you have to recite for yourself. Clear? You listen. Now, in the first rak'ah, second rak'ah of Jahri Salah, the imam recited Surah Al-Fatiha, you said Ameen, so the prayer, was also yours. But the second surah that he recited, are you supposed to recite that also? No. You are not required to recite. Why? Because the imam is reciting for you. Because otherwise, why would the imam be asked to recite out loud? If everyone has to recite at the same time, then why would the imam be asked to recite out loud? Okay, good question. Now, what if you join the prayer and the imam has already completed Surah Al-Fatiha? Then what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to recite Surah Al-Fatiha yourself. Because you missed the Fatiha of the imam. Okay? Any other question? You recite softly, obviously. And over there, you are exempted from the command to listen attentively. Why? Because the command of reciting Surah Al-Fatiha applies to you. You understand? That is applying to you. Why? Because if you don't recite Surah Al-Fatiha, your rak'ah will be invalid. It will be incomplete. So then, one command will take precedence over the other. You understand? Sometimes it seems like, they're contradictory. If you follow one, you'll be not following the other. But it's not like you're following one and opposing the other. It's that in this situation, one command will take precedence over the other. This is just like the Prophet ﷺ forbade people from fasting on Saturday. Okay? He forbade. From clear ahadith we learn it's forbidden. However, when a person is fasting on Friday, then he should either fast on Thursday as well, or he should join it with the fast of Saturday. Okay? So, the fast of Saturday, nafil fast of Saturday, is permissible for you. Why? Because you are fasting because of Friday. You understand? Likewise, you want to fast, let's say, the 3 white days. Okay, the middle of the month. And that happens to be on a Saturday. Now that prohibition will be cancelled by the other ruling. You understand? So, remember that in different situations, different commands or different prohibitions will take precedence. And this is very, very important for us to understand. Okay? Because otherwise we become very, rigid, and we become angry with other people that why are they not doing what we are doing. Okay? So it's important to understand this difference. Okay? Inshallah. حدثنا محمد بن بشار قال حدثنا يحيى عن عبيد الله قال حدثني سعيد بن أبي سعيد عن أبيه عن أبي هريرة أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم دخل المسجد. That once the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم entered the masjid. فدخل رجل, and a man also entered. فصلى, and he prayed. The man, he entered and he prayed. Which salah do you think he performed? Tahiyatul Masjid. فسلم على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Then he came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and he said the salam. فرد, he returned, meaning he said وعليكم السلام. وقال, and he said to that man, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said to that man, ارجع, return, فصلي, then pray. فإنك لم تصلي, because indeed you have not prayed. Go repeat your prayer because you have not prayed. What you did right now was not salah. It's not counted as salah. فَرَجَعَ يُصَلِّي, so he returned and he prayed. كَمَا صَلَّى, just as he had prayed before. ثُمَّ جَاءَ, then he came. فَسَلَّمَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, and he came and greeted the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فَقَالَ, again the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, ارجع, return, فَصَلِّي, then pray. فَإِنَّكَ لَمْ تُصَلِّي, because you have not performed the prayer. And this happened ثلاثا, 3 times. This happened 3 times. So the man went and performed his salah 3 times. فَقَالَ, then he said, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ, by the one who has sent you in truth. By who? Allah, who has sent you, O Prophet ﷺ, with the truth. Meaning whatever you say is the truth. I believe. You are right, I am wrong. بِالْحَقِّ, because you will only speak the truth. مَا أُحْسِنُ غَيْرَهُ, I don't know any better than this. I don't know any better than this. This is a salah that I know. فَعَلِّمْنِي, so teach me. فَقَالَ, so he said, إِذَا قُمْتَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ, when you stand up to pray, فَكَبِّرْ, then say the takbir. ثُمَّ then اقرأ, recite مَا تَيَسَّرَ مَعَكَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, what is easy for you from the Qur'an. And obviously, this begins with Surah Al-Fatiha, and after Surah Al-Fatiha, whatever is easy for a person. And easy means whatever he knows and whatever time he can give. Okay? ثُمَّ ارْكَعْ, then do ruku'. حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ رَاكِعًا, until you become still while doing ruku'. Go down into ruku' and become still over there. ثُمَّ ارْفَعْ, then get up. حَتَّى تَعْدِلَ قَائِمًا, until you are تَعْدِلَ قَائِمًا, تَعْدِلَ from adl, like to be straight. قَائِمًا, like you're standing straight properly as you should be standing still. ثُمَّ اسْجُدْ, then go into sajda. حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ سَاجِدًا, until you become still while prostrating. ثُمَّ ارْفَعْ, then get up. حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ جَالِسًا, until you become still while sitting. وَافْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فِي صَلَاةِ كُلِّهَا, and do this in your prayer, all of it. Meaning for every rak'ah, this is what you should do. Beautiful hadith. What do we learn from this? First of all, we see the obedience of this companion. The Prophet ﷺ tells him, go repeat your prayer. And he goes and repeats the prayer. He comes back and he's told again and again. 3 times he is told, repeat your prayer. And that Sahabi goes and repeats the prayer. Look at how obedient he was. He didn't say, why? How come? What did I do wrong? You told me once. You told me to repeat my prayer. I repeated it. Now you're telling me to repeat again? And again? Without any objections, without any questions. If the Prophet ﷺ is telling me, I have to go repeat. Look at the respect that he had and the obedience that he showed. It's amazing. This hadith is known as the hadith of Musi' fi salah, the one who did not pray properly. But if you think about it, look at the humility of this companion and the obedience of this companion and the persistence and the patience that he had. He didn't get angry. He didn't give up. It's amazing. Beautiful behavior. Beautiful obedience. Secondly, we see the hikmah of the Prophet ﷺ also, that the Prophet ﷺ did not teach him the first time. If you think about it, it would have been easier, right? That the man came and prayed, the Prophet ﷺ could have said that this is, a mistake that you made. You made this mistake, please correct it. No. He didn't tell him his mistakes the first time. What did he say? Try again. Try again. Try again. He gave him 3 chances. Why? Why? Wasn't this process longer and perhaps more difficult for the companion? But why is it that the Prophet ﷺ adopted this methodology? Why? So that the companion would figure out the mistake himself. He would figure out the mistake himself. He would realize that, oh, this is the mistake that I made. And this is a very, very important rule to remember. Many times it happens that when children are learning, whether it is to speak or it is to write or it is any kind of skill, what happens is that as mothers or sometimes as teachers or as assistants, we don't even let the child realize the mistake that has been made, and we just instantly correct them. There is another approach, which is let the child figure out the mistake that he has made. For example, he's putting puzzle pieces together. Okay? And he's put the wrong pieces together. Okay? Now one is that you say, no, this is not how we do it. And you break it up and you say, this is how we do it. And the child was like, oh, why? He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. And the other is that you question him. And you say, do you think this piece fits here? And there's a tree on this side and there's a man's foot on the other side. Do you think these pieces go together? Let him use his mind and think. This is a much better way of learning. This is, training the person to become an independent learner. How long will they depend on you, on us? They cannot. So let them make mistakes, figure out their mistakes, learn from their mistakes, because this is how they will grow. Right? But what happens is that we become impatient. We say, let me just do it myself. You don't know? Let me just put it together for you. Let me, put the pieces together for you. No. Let them figure out the mistakes themselves. And this is a part of growing up. Right? And secondly, we see there was another benefit. That when the companion tried once, twice, thrice, and he realized that, I'm doing something wrong and I don't know what I'm doing. This made him eager to learn the right way. More eager. And this is why he said, وَالَّذِي بَعْثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ مَا أُحْسِنُ غَيْرَهُ فَعَلِّمْنِي. Please teach me. Whereas if the Prophet ﷺ told him the first time, don't do this, instead do this, the companion would be like, okay, sure. And he would forget. But now he was so receptive. Right? He was so open to receiving any kind of command from the Prophet ﷺ regarding the prayer. And you see the companions also, they were listening, watching attentively. What's going on over here? What's the mistake that this man made? We better find out. Right? So this made the people more eager, and this made the companion more eager also to learn. Because many times it happens that when a person starts to do something himself, he's very enthusiastic and he thinks that he can do it. And he believes that he's doing it right. And if you say, no, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. There, his whole confidence is shattered. Or at the beginning, if you tell them, you're making this mistake, you're making this mistake, they're not going to listen to you. They're like, you know what? You don't know. I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me. But what happens? When they're allowed to make a mistake and they realize, and they make another mistake, then what happens? They come to you asking for help, asking for guidance. That I'm making this mistake, please tell me. But they will only come to you when they will feel comfortable asking you. They will not feel comfortable asking you if you're pointing out their mistakes from the first day. This is a very important point that we need to remember as mothers, as sisters, as mentors, or whatever our role is in our family, at an institution, at a workplace, anywhere. So the Prophet ﷺ, the way that he taught this man was very, very beautiful. Thirdly, we see over here that the Prophet ﷺ, he taught him the correct method of salah. And he didn't teach him every single detail. Just the basic things. Or the things that this man needed to know. Okay? And part of that was what? That when you pray, when you get up to pray, when you stand to pray, then begin with the takbir and then recite whatever is possible for you from the Quran. So from this, Imam Bukhari has extracted that it is mandatory to recite from the Quran, and that is Surah Al-Fatiha minimum in every rak'ah. Because at the end the Prophet ﷺ said, وَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فِي صَلَاتِكَ كُلِّهَا. Do that in your entire prayer. Now, what was the main mistake that this man was making? The major mistake. That he was not observing طمأنينة. He was rushing through the prayer. He was performing the prayer very quickly. Which is why it seems that the Prophet ﷺ had to tell him, recite the Quran. Because if a person has just stood up and instantly is going down into ruku', it's like as though he hasn't recited at all. So the fact that he emphasized on recitation, and then for every position afterwards he said, حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ حَتَّى تَعْتَدِلَ حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ حَتَّى تَطْمَئِنَّ. So what does this show? That طمأنينة is also a part of prayer, without which salah would be incomplete. What is طمأنينة? That when a person is performing the salah, in every position that he goes into, he becomes still before moving on to the next position. So for example, getting up from ruku'. When you get up, yes, you said, سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ. Now, رَبَّنَا وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ حَمْدًا كَثِيرًا طَيِّبًا مُبَارَكًا فِيهِ. There should be some dhikr, right? And then, when a person has become still, then he should move on to the next position, which is of sajda. Not that on coming up, he's saying, سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ, and on going down, he's saying, حَمْدًا كَثِيرًا طَيِّبًا مُبَارَكًا فِيهِ. Allahu Akbar. No. He should stand up, become still, even if it's just for a second, even if it's just for 2-3 seconds, very, very briefly. But he should have this طمأنينة. And this is something that we should remember even when we're rushing to finish the prayer in a state of some emergency. Okay? Because sometimes it happens that you're performing the salah, it's Fajr time, everybody's sleeping, okay, your children are sleeping and your alarm goes off. Right? It happened with me this morning. And I was so worried that if this alarm doesn't stop, my daughter's going to wake up. And if she wakes up, then there goes my salah. So, at that time, sometimes you have to rush through the prayer, you have to finish it. But in that, don't start rushing that no position is complete. Every position must be complete. And how is it completed? By طمأنينة. Okay? And this is so scary. ارجع فصلي فإنك لم تصلي. Go back and pray because you have not prayed. You have not prayed. How important it is to learn the correct method of prayer. Because if a person is not performing the salah properly, it's as though he is not performing it. It's as though salah has not been done. فإنك لم تصلي. حدثنا أبو النعمان حدثنا أبو عوانة عن عبد الملك بن عمير عن جابر بن سمرة قال سعد. He said, Sa'd radhiyallahu anhu said, كنت أصلي بهم صلاة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Same hadith that we learned earlier, another chain, another text. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas said that I used to perform the salah with them, the prayer of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning exactly how he used to pray. Which prayers? Salatayil Ashiyi, the two prayers of Ashi. Ashi means early evening, so afternoon prayers, so Dhuhr and Asr. I used to perform the two afternoon prayers, mid-afternoon prayers, Dhuhr and Asr. La akhrimu anha, and I did not shorten it. I did not diminish it in any way. Arkudu fil ulayayni wa ahdhifu fil ukhrayayni. I would make the first two rak'ah long and the last two rak'ah short. فقال عمر رضي الله عنه ذلك الظن بك. Umar رضي الله عنه said, that is exactly what we expected of you. That is what we thought of you. And this shows to us the husn al-dhan of Umar رضي الله عنه. So we see that in one narration, Sa'ad رضي الله عنه is reported to have spoken about his Isha prayer. And in this narration, his Dhuhr and Asr. Okay? So, the lesson over here is that whether it is Isha, or it is Dhuhr, or it is Asr, whether it is Jahri Salah or Sirri Salah, Imam, Ma'mum, everyone has to recite which surah? Surah Al-Fatiha. Bab al-Qira'ati fi al-Dhuhri, recitation in the Dhuhr prayer. Meaning, in the Dhuhr prayer also, one has to do qira'ah even though it is sirri. حدثنا أبو نعيم قال حدثنا شيبان عن يحيى عن عبد الله بن أبي قتادة عن أبيه قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ في الركعتين الأوليين من صلاة الظهر بفاتحة الكتاب وسورتين. He said the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would يقرأ, he would recite في الركعتين, in the two rak'ah. Which two rak'ah? الأوليين, the first two. من صلاة الظهر, of the Dhuhr prayer. What would he recite? Fatihat al-Kitab, meaning Surah Al-Fatiha. And along with Surah Al-Fatiha, he would also recite Suratain, two surahs. Meaning, in each surah, in each rak'ah, a surah. يُطَوِّلُ فِي الْأُولَى, he would make the first rak'ah long, وَيُقَصِّرُ فِي الثَّانِيَةِ, and he would make the second rak'ah short. So the first two rak'ah, after Surah Al-Fatiha, was more recitation. The first rak'ah was long and the second rak'ah was short. What does that mean? A longer surah in the first rak'ah and a shorter surah in the second rak'ah. وَيُسْمِعُ الْآيَةَ أَحْيَانًا. وَيُسْمِعُ, and he would make hear al-ayah, an ayah, أحيانا, sometimes. Meaning sometimes he would say an ayah out loud. Why? So that the people could hear him. وَكَانَ يَقْرَأُ فِي الْعَصْرِ, and he would recite in the Asr prayer بِفَاتِحَةِ الْكِتَابِ وَسُورَتَيْن, Surah Al-Fatiha and two other surahs, meaning a surah in each rak'ah. وَكَانَ يُطَوِّلُ فِي الْأُولَى, and he would make the first rak'ah long. وَكَانَ يُطَوِّلُ فِي الرَّكْعَةِ الْأُولَى مِنْ صَلَاةِ الصُّبْحِ, and he would make the rak'ah even longer, the first rak'ah, in which salah? In the salah of subh, meaning in the Fajr prayer. Meaning the Fajr prayer, the qiyam would be even longer. It would be even longer. وَيُقَصِّرُ فِي الثَّانِيَةِ, and the second one would be shorter. So, in this hadith, what do we see? 4 prayers have been mentioned. Dhuhr, 3 have been mentioned. Dhuhr, Asr and Fajr. In all 3 prayers, what was the way of the Prophet ﷺ? In the first 2 rak'ah, what would he do? Recite some Qur'an after Surah Al-Fatiha. But what was his methodology? First rak'ah, more, and the second rak'ah, less. So the first rak'ah would always be longer than the second rak'ah. Okay? But remember that this is the general rule. That always when you're praying, the first rak'ah should be longer than the second. However, sometimes if a person does end up reciting a longer surah in the second rak'ah, there's no harm. Okay? There's no harm. Like for example, you read the first rak'ah, okay, and you recited, let's say, Fajr prayer, Surah An-Naba. Okay? And in the second rak'ah you say, I will recite Surah An-Nazi'at. But if you see Surah An-Nazi'at is slightly longer than Surah An-Naba. There is a slight difference over there. Okay? Now, you can't say that, I have to make it less than Surah An-Naba, so I will stop, 5 ayahs short. I won't recite the last 5 ayat. No, complete the surah, there is no harm. Okay? And we see this in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ actually. that in Jumu'ah Salah, in the first rak'ah, what would he recite? Sabbih isma rabbikal a'la. And in the second rak'ah, what would he recite? Surah al-Ghashiyah. And Surah al-Ghashiyah is actually longer than Surah al-A'la. Just slightly. Slightly it's longer. So remember that generally first rak'ah should be longer than the second. However, if sometimes it's the other way around, no harm. Okay? There is no harm. Don't think that your salah was invalid. حدثنا عمر بن حفص قال حدثنا أبي قال حدثنا الأعمش حدثني عمارة عن أبي معمر قال سألنا خبابا. He said, we asked Khabbab رضي الله عنه أكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أكان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ في الظهر والعصر. He said, we asked Khabbab, did the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to recite any Quran in Dhuhr and Asr? قال, he said, نعم, yes. قلنا بأي شيء كنتم تعرفون. He said, how do you know this? قال, he said, باضطراب لحيته, by the movement of his beard. And we have read this hadith earlier. So this hadith actually clarifies to us that in Dhuhr Salah, the Imam and the Ma'moom both have to recite. Okay? The Imam and the Ma'moom both have to recite. And from this second hadith, we also learn about the way of recitation. That how should it be? With the movement of the mouth. If the Prophet ﷺ's beard was moving, what does that mean? His mouth was moving. His lips were moving. So even though his recitation was not audible, in the sense that people could not hear his recitation, still his mouth was moving. Which means that salah, we cannot read in our mind, in our heart. No, you have to pronounce the words with your mouth. Your lips have to move, your mouth has to move. Okay? It doesn't mean that we whisper so loud that everybody can hear. No. It means that we just move our mouth. Move the lips. Okay? The lips must be moved. Inshallah, we will conclude over here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.